You didn't click on this by accident, and I don't say that lightly or dramatically or as a phrase people throw around to sound spiritual. I say it because moments like this rarely come with noise. They arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, yet something inside you paused. Something inside you felt a pull, and that alone should make you listen a little closer. This message is not meant for everyone. Some will hear these words and feel nothing. Others will scroll away, distracted, unmoved. But if you're still here, if your spirit feels alert instead of bored, then it's because this moment is touching something God has already been stirring within you. There are seasons when God speaks loudly, and there are seasons when He speaks in a whisper. This is a whisper moment, a recognition moment, the kind that doesn't shout but settles deeply. You may not even know why you're listening, only that it feels necessary. You've been wondering why certain connections in your life never fully aligned, why conversations felt incomplete, why even in rooms full of people there was a sense that something or someone was missing. Not in a desperate way, not in a lonely way, more like a quiet awareness that something was unfinished. That awareness didn't come from insecurity, it came from preparation. God has been working on you in ways others never saw. While people only noticed the surface, your strength, your faith, your resilience, God was shaping deeper things. Teaching you discernment, teaching you restraint, teaching you how to stand alone without becoming bitter, how to wait without losing hope. And while that was happening, God was also working on someone else, not near you, not visible to you, not connected to your current world, but being shaped in a parallel process. Separate paths, separate lessons, separate pruning, yet guided by the same hand. That's why this connection is different. It doesn't come from searching. It doesn't come from striving. It doesn't come from filling a void. It comes from alignment, from timing, from God bringing together what He prepared separately. Scripture shows this pattern again and again. God prepares people individually before He ever connects them publicly. Moses spent years alone before leading a people. David was anointed long before he was crowned. Ruth was faithful in obscurity before her life intersected with Boaz in a way that changed generations. Preparation always precedes connection. You may have felt misunderstood for a long time, not because you lacked clarity, but because the people around you didn't have the capacity to see what God placed within you. That can be painful. It can make you question whether you're asking for too much or expecting something unrealistic. But you weren't wrong. You were early. God never places a missing piece in your life randomly. He places it intentionally. And the missing piece is rarely someone who completes you in a shallow sense. It's someone who complements what God has already built in you. Someone who recognizes what others overlooked. Someone whose presence doesn't drain you, but steadies you. That recognition works both ways. When the connection comes, it won't feel forced. It won't feel confusing. It won't feel chaotic. There will be a sense of familiarity that doesn't need explanation. A peace that doesn't need convincing. Not excitement that fades quickly, but clarity that settles deeply. You won't need to perform. You won't need to prove. You won't need to shrink or overextend. You'll simply be understood, and that's how you know God is involved. Because God does not create confusion where He intends purpose. He does not bring distraction where He intends direction. And He does not connect people carelessly when their connection carries weight. You may have spent time questioning your own readiness, wondering if you healed enough, grew enough, waited enough. But God measures readiness differently than we do. He looks at obedience, at humility, at teachability, at the willingness to trust Him even when answers were delayed. And you did that, not perfectly, not without moments of doubt, but faithfully. This is why the timing matters. This is why it couldn't happen sooner. And this is why it feels so specific now. God often allows the feeling of absence so that recognition will be undeniable when alignment arrives. If you had received this connection earlier, you might not have protected it. You might not have recognized its value. You might have confused it with something temporary. Now, you won't. Because you know what misalignment feels like. You know what draining connections cost. You know what it means to outgrow spaces and people. And because of that, you'll treat what God sends with reverence, not recklessness. This message isn't meant to make you restless. It's meant to make you aware, to remind you that God sees the whole picture, not just the part you're standing in, to reassure you that what feels missing is not forgotten. It's being guided. So don't rush, don't force, don't overthink. Stay prayerful, stay grounded, stay discerning. The same God who prepared you in private is fully capable of orchestrating what comes next in a way that protects your peace. And when the moment comes, when the connection reveals itself, you won't need signs to convince you. You'll know, quietly, confidently, deep within, because divine recognition doesn't shout, it settles. When we talk about a missing piece, many people immediately assume it means romance, companionship, or emotional dependence. But what God places into your life is rarely that shallow. God does not connect people simply to fill emotional gaps. He connects people to bring alignment, restoration, and strength to what He has already established. The missing piece is not someone who replaces your identity. It's someone who recognizes it. There is a difference between needing someone and being assigned to someone. Need creates attachment. Assignment creates purpose. And what God is doing in this season of your life is not feeding a need, but fulfilling an assignment. That's why this connection feels different from anything you've experienced before. In the past, connections may have felt exciting at first but draining over time. You may have felt like you were always explaining yourself, always adjusting, always compromising your peace to keep things working. Some connections demanded more than they gave. Others felt good emotionally but lacked spiritual substance. Those connections weren't wrong. They were just incomplete for where God was taking you. The missing piece God brings is not someone who takes from you, but someone who sharpens you. Scripture tells us that iron sharpens iron. That sharpening is not always comfortable, but it is always purposeful. God connects people who can speak truth to each other, who can challenge each other without competing, who can strengthen each other without control. This is why the connection doesn't feel chaotic. It doesn't pull you away from God. It doesn't require you to abandon your convictions. Instead, it brings clarity. It brings steadiness. It brings confirmation. Biblically, divine connections were never about emotional dependency. Jonathan strengthened David's hand in God. Aaron supported Moses when his strength failed. Paul and Timothy sharpened one another across generations. These were not relationships built on need, but on calling. God connects people to restore what was weakened, not to replace what is missing. You've already noticed this shift within yourself. You no longer desire surface-level connections. You're not impressed by charm without character. You're not drawn to energy that lacks direction. Something in you changed, and that change was necessary for this connection to make sense. Because the missing piece doesn't complete you. It complements you. It brings balance where you were carrying too much alone. It brings perspective where you were limited by your own view. It brings confirmation where you were faithful but uncertain. And most importantly, it helps you remain aligned with God, not distracted from Him. That's why this connection feels peaceful instead of consuming, familiar instead of overwhelming, deep instead of dramatic. God is intentional with timing because timing protects purpose. If this connection had arrived earlier, it might have been misused, misunderstood, or mishandled. But now you're able to recognize it for what it truly is. Not an escape, not a distraction, not a replacement, a reinforcement. The missing piece often comes after seasons of isolation because isolation builds discernment. It teaches you how to hear God without noise, how to trust Him without validation, how to remain obedient even when results are delayed. And once that foundation is built, God allows connection to enhance what isolation produced. This is why the connection doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't pressure you. It doesn't demand immediate outcomes. It unfolds naturally with clarity and respect for boundaries. God does not rush what He values. You may have wondered why certain people couldn't go where you were going. Why some connections faded without explanation. Why others fell apart even when you tried to hold them together. It wasn't because you failed. It was because they were not designed to carry the weight of your next season. The missing piece is designed to walk with you, not hold you back. This connection feels different because it aligns with who you are becoming, not who you used to be. It doesn't pull you into confusion. It doesn't awaken old wounds. It doesn't require you to compromise spiritually. Instead, it brings growth. It brings accountability. It brings strength. And that's how you know God is involved. God does not create soul ties casually. He weaves purpose into connection. He uses people to confirm what he already spoke in private. He brings reinforcement when the assignment ahead requires support. You are not weak for needing this connection. You are wise for recognizing it. The missing piece is not someone who fills a void in your heart. God already filled that space himself. The missing piece is someone who walks alongside you as you step into what God prepared for you both. That's why this connection feels familiar, but not familiar in a human sense. It resonates spiritually. It feels aligned rather than addictive. It feels grounded rather than rushed. And it explains something you couldn't quite put into words before. Why you felt prepared yet incomplete. Why you felt strong yet stretched. Why you felt ready yet aware that something was still forming. God was never withholding from you. He was aligning for you. What you're sensing now is not anticipation driven by emotion. It's recognition driven by purpose. And when God reveals the missing piece, it's not to take your focus away from Him, but to strengthen your walk with Him. This is not about romance alone. It's about restoration. It's about partnership in faith. It's about mutual strengthening. It's about God connecting what He prepared separately so that together, it can carry more weight than it ever could alone. And that's why this connection feels different. Because it is. You may be wondering why this is happening now, after everything you've walked through, after all the waiting, the learning, the letting go. Why not earlier, when you were praying harder, hoping more, asking God with tears? Why now, when you're quieter, more settled, less desperate for answers? The truth is, now is not random. Now is intentional. God works in seasons, and every season has a purpose. There was a season when He taught you endurance. A season when He taught you obedience without clarity. A season when He taught you how to trust Him even when nothing seemed to move. Those seasons were not delays. They were preparation. Preparation doesn't always feel productive, but it is sacred. There were things God needed to remove from you before He could add what was next. Mindsets that would have misinterpreted the connection. Expectations that would have put pressure on it. Ones that would have distorted it. If this connection had come earlier, you might have held it too tightly or misunderstood its purpose. Now you're steady. Now you're discerning. Now you're not asking someone else to save you, validate you, or complete you. And that's exactly why God can trust you with what's coming. God does not waste connections. He does not bring people into your life casually, especially when they carry purpose. When He connects lives, it's because the timing aligns not just emotionally, but spiritually. He connects people when their obedience can sustain the assignment. That's what makes this moment different. You're no longer chasing signs. You're no longer forcing outcomes. You're no longer trying to control how things unfold. You've learned to wait without losing faith. You've learned to listen without needing immediate answers. You've learned that God's silence is not absence. And because of that, you're ready. This is a season of activation, but not the kind that rushes or overwhelms. It's a quiet activation. One that unfolds with peace instead of pressure, one that confirms rather than confuses. God often confirms His will through peace. Not excitement alone, not emotion alone, but a deep inner assurance that doesn't fade when things slow down. If something is from God, it will remain steady even when circumstances fluctuate. That's why you're being invited to remain prayerful, not reactive, to stay grounded, not anxious, to stay discerning, not idealistic. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. Waiting means staying aligned. Pray, but don't obsess. Listen, but don't overanalyze. Stay open, but don't abandon wisdom. God's timing does not require you to abandon discernment. In fact, discernment is one of the very tools He sharpened in you during the waiting season. You don't need to rush this connection. What is meant to grow will grow at the pace God designed. What is meant to last does not need to be forced. God is not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to trust what He's already been showing you. And what He's been showing you is consistency, peace, and alignment. You may feel a sense of expectancy, like something is unfolding but not yet fully revealed. That's not anxiety. That's anticipation rooted in faith. It's the awareness that the season is shifting, that the waiting room is not permanent, that what God prepared in secret is about to move into the open. But even now, God is still protecting you. He's protecting you from rushing ahead of Him. He's protecting you from projecting past experiences onto new assignments. He's protecting the connection itself by allowing it to develop with clarity rather than confusion. So your role in this season is simple but sacred. Stay close to God. Let prayer remain your anchor, not your last resort. Ask God for wisdom, not just confirmation. Ask Him to guard your heart, not harden it. Ask Him to show you how to move forward with humility and patience. You don't need to announce what God is doing. You don't need to explain it to everyone. Some things are meant to be protected before they are shared. God reveals in layers, and wisdom knows when to be quiet. Trust that if God connected this, He will sustain it. Trust that if God prepared you for this, He will guide you through it. Trust that you are not late and you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be. This moment is not about fear of missing out. It's about faith stepping in. It's about recognizing that God's timing is precise, even when it feels slow. It's about understanding that preparation always ends in purpose. And as this season unfolds, you will notice something shift within you, a calm confidence, a settled assurance, a sense that you don't need to rush the future because God is already there. What is coming will not steal your peace, it will protect it. What is coming will not compete with God, it will align with Him. What is coming will not confuse you. It will confirm what God has been speaking to you all along. So remain steady, remain prayerful, remain discerning. The season of preparation is ending, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you remained faithful. And faithfulness is what God honors. This is not the end of the journey. It's the confirmation that the journey had purpose. And the same God who carried you through the waiting is the God who will guide you through what comes next. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are not misaligned. You are right on time.